No prizes for guessing what building this is. This is by far the most important building of Udaipur. So what is the most important building of Udaipur? So I think if you know a little bit about these major cities of Rajasthan, you would know that many of them have the place where the king lives and rules from, and it's often called the City Palace. So this imposing and beautiful building, gleaming and glistening in the sun, is the Udaipur City Palace. It's around 500 years old and it was built along with the city of Udaipur. It is so beautiful and so massive, and one of the reasons why a lot of these city palaces were big and massive is because they were built also as defensive forts in order to fight the enemies. I think the sunlight reflecting off its facade, that's what makes it all the more wonderful, right? And I mean, my mind goes back to last night as well when we were looking at this from across the lake. We were at the Ambrai Ghat, which is on the other side of the lake. But I think the morning view is just something else. Of course, this lake that I'm boating in, that you're boating in, this is Lake Pichola, and the location of the city palace was actually very conscious and deliberate. As a protective fort for the city, it was built right by the lake and also built on top of a hill in this area, and that's the reason you may actually notice that gradient to the city palace as well as to the other buildings that we see just around it, because it's built on multiple levels on top of that hill. So we will be exploring more of the city palace soon, but for now we'll visit one of the islands within Lake Pichola. This is actually the beautiful island of Jag Mandir. So here we are. This is the beautiful little palace in the middle of Lake Pichola. This is called the Jag Mandir. Jag Mandir is actually also famous as the place where the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan lived after his conflict with his father Jahangir, and this goes back to the early 1600s. So clearly the views that you're experiencing right now, they're steeped in deep history, not just the Mewar history, but also Mughal history. In fact, it's believed that Shah Jahan was so impressed by the architecture and his experiences here in Udaipur that he even used some of this architecture in later on building Taj Mahal in Agra, which of course is one of the most famous monuments in the world. So yeah, I think it's an absolute pleasure being here at Jag Mandir. This is so beautiful. I think it's the sunny day that probably makes it twice as beautiful as a non-sunny day. But I think, yeah, this island is very charming, and the fact that it's so accessible in terms of its size, I think that makes it all the more wonderful. You can just walk around. Wow. And as you can see, clearly it's being maintained really nicely, the Jag Mandir. An interesting fact about this place is that while it's built in the middle of an artificial lake, The island on which it's built is actually a natural island, so maybe there was an elevated area and all the surroundings of it were made into Lake Pichola, and this area ended up becoming an island. That'll be quite the view for a cafe. Wow. You can look across the lake and look at the City Palace too, just beyond. So it's coffee time for me as well. And as we drink this coffee, maybe we can talk about a few more things. So they say that even though City Palace is, of course, the major big palace of Udaipur, when it comes to later in the night, it's the Jag Mandir that actually looks more beautiful and more impressive than even the huge City Palace that we saw earlier in this video. And I can see why. This is a very pretty little place. I believe Jag Mandir now is also built into a hotel, so if you've got a lot of money, you could get yourself a room here in the hotel within Jag Mandir. But I think that's the thing with a lot of these heritage palace hotels in Udaipur or in any other place in Rajasthan, that they're extremely expensive. They're actually out of reach for majority of Indians, which is a little interesting and also a little sad to think about. But yeah, if you've got maybe the dollar kind of spending power, then you'll be able to stay at these hotels and have a wonderful time, I'm sure. Anyways, one more interesting bit came to my mind. So I talked about how Shah Jahan stayed here because the Mughals and the Mewars at that time were having this close relationship, and this goes back to 1600s. But in addition to that, even a lot of Europeans stayed here at the time of 1857. Wow. So, anyways, what happened in 1857, do you know? So it was when the mutiny of the Indian Army happened, and a lot of Europeans were targeted at that time, and the ruler of Udaipur at that time gave refuge to those Europeans right here. If you've not noticed already, maybe you should notice now. There's actually preparation for some function, maybe a wedding going on right now. Some more prep for the wedding. I'm sure this will be a super expensive wedding. I mean, anything and everything in these palace hotels is super expensive and super luxurious, and of course super beautiful, as you can see. I'm not sure if that's the mosque. Is that the mosque? So yeah, there is a mosque on Jag Mandir, which is interesting because it's a mosque on a Hindu palace. I think by now you would already understand why the mosque, because of course the Mughal king, then the Prince Shah Jahan, he was given refuge right at this place. And if you still did not connect the dots, Shah Jahan was actually a Muslim prince and a Muslim ruler, therefore the mosque. Alright, so with these beautiful views of the Jag Mandir imprinted inside our minds now, we have started moving again, and we'll get back to City Palace now. And it's so fascinating to wonder that 400 years ago, the Mughal Prince Shah Jahan would have had some sort of similar experience and similar views when he was traveling away from Jag Mandir towards City Palace. Wow. So, no Shah Jahan here for now, but we have reached the City Palace, which is the biggest and the most powerful building in the whole of Udaipur. And we'll try to spend some time exploring this huge building. It's actually set up across multiple stories, so we'll end up giving ourselves a lot of exercise, going up and down lots of stairs. So that's our first set of stairs, and this facade and this side of the City Palace is actually called the Manak Chowk, and it's a location where a lot of very expensive weddings and functions are held as well. And as I mentioned, you can only do that if you've got a lot of money. So the original reason for so many stairs was to deter the enemies. Of course, today these stairs can be a little challenging for the visitors. How beautiful. I think the fact that this palace is built on top of a hill, that almost necessitates that there will be different levels and there will be a lot of stairs. But one more thing to notice is that those different levels and different sections of this mahal were actually built over the course of 400 years. So that 400-year thing is because the City Palace in Udaipur, it was actually built in a number of different sections for a total of 400 years across 23 generations of the rulers here. I think it's a truly massive feat to actually be able to continue the construction of such a huge structure for 400 years across 23 generations. And for me, the only comparison is actually to the little bits of construction that I have helped with at our ancestral house, and that itself was extremely difficult. So this is a feat across 23 generations. It's just unbelievable. So beautiful. I think, as you've probably noticed already, the City Palace comprises of multiple different sections, and there are multiple courtyards and multiple mahals or small palaces which are built within this big city palace, and all of them were built by different generations. Wow. I think the whole charm of the City Palace is the fact that it's so diverse. You see differences as you walk from one section to the other. Of course, you see differences in elevation as well, but you see differences in colors and differences in the design that was used. And now, as we enter this beautiful courtyard, you can see this is another aspect of the City Palace, these open, beautiful courtyards. We are almost at, I think, the highest level of the City Palace now, as we try to check out the beautiful views in this direction. That's the lake. Alright, so now walking over to another different section, and we'll probably see another different design, another different architecture. Wow, look at that. Who would have expected blue out of all the various colors we've already seen? And this is so beautiful in that brightness of the sun coming through the windows and overlooking this beautiful courtyard. This is just wonderful. And I don't think I've seen any palace which has so much diversity of designs within it. I've mostly seen palaces and forts that are more uniform in nature. I think the charm and the uniqueness of this fort and this palace has to be the fact that it is built on top of cooperation of so many generations and work that was done over hundreds of years, literally. Like a fort and palace that was built over 400 years, that's just difficult to fathom, right? And I think this area that we are looking at is where we'd entered from. This is the Manak Chowk. I must say, exploring the City Palace is a little challenging because of those flights of stairs that you have to climb all the time. But the fact that you see so many beautiful and so many different views, I think it really rejuvenates you, and it also sort of pays back for all the cardio that you've done. Wow, for example, look at that. This is the courtyard looking inwards within the City Palace. And of course, a courtyard which was built by one of those 23 generations. All right, time for us to use the stairs once again. But now we are descending, which means we've, of course, seen the highest point of the City Palace. Oh my God. I think we may have seen physically the highest point of the City Palace, but these beautiful, diverse views, they are still continuing. As you can see, we see beautiful colors. This is almost like the peacock turned into architecture, turned into the designs of this space. So the previous courtyard is called the More Chowk. More is peacock in Hindi. I'm kind of trying to consciously not give you a lot of information, and I'm trying to almost keep this visit more experiential. Wow, that dome almost looks unbelievable. It looks like a transparent dome. Wow. And this is called the Zenana Mahal. What an absolutely overwhelming almost experience this has been. I think the City Palace is just so many things and so many different rooms and courtyards and designs at once. And those things that you noticed on the door, those are of course to prevent larger animals such as elephants from pushing through the door. So that's a defensive purpose of the gate that we saw just now. It's called the Toran Pole Gate. I'm sure this place would look absolutely amazing at night with all the lights. And this courtyard where we are walking, like open space, the main chowk of the City Palace, also called the Manak Chowk, this is where a lot of royal weddings and other expensive weddings are actually held as well. And I think as for like the royal wedding, you should maybe Google Manak Chowk City Palace wedding and you'll see how amazing this place looks. Alright, so we are almost at the fag end of our City Palace tour. We are exiting from this famous gate of the City Palace behind us. It's called the Tripoli Gate, which means there are 3 different arches to the gate. What an experience this has been. I think everything about this place is just so grand and so royal. For instance, right now we are literally standing in front of the restrooms, just waiting here, and you can see even this look is so impressive. Anyways, we are pretty much done with the City Palace. We are also pretty much done with today's video. I'll catch you again. Bye.